announcements.
Okay.
All right. So I'm at the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of Ottawa. I'm a web content management strategist and webmaster. I've been at the faculty for about 10 plus years. I enjoy it. I've lived through 2 Drupal migrations. So we moved from static ASP pages and using Contribute in 2012 to using Drupal. It was a version of Drupal that was given to us as sort of a prototype to play with. I worked with a great colleague named Mourad Belkebir who took it on to figure it out, set it up, and put it together for us. And then my responsibility was to work with 1 co-op student and 2 work-study students and get the content over. So that was in 2012. And then we did it again in 2014. We did it from 2014 to 2015. I was on maternity leave in 2014, so when I came back to the announcement that we were doing this, which was a bit of a shock. But it was a great experience, and I'm glad we did it. I'm also founding a Women in IT group at the university, so if any of you from the university and are female and are interested, come see me. I'll get you set up. I also do a bunch of other things. I wear a lot of hats at the university. But I've also worked in web at Natural Resources Canada and at Go for Green, which is a decommissioned not-for-profit. I'm a mom and a manager of hats. And now I'm also a Drupal camp speaker. Sorry, that was a bit long.
It's fine. So I'm Patrick again. I'm the web developer for the Faculty of Medicine since May 2018, so 6 months now. Before that, I graduated from uOttawa with an honors in computer science with an option in entrepreneurship and management. However, whenever I was working here whenever I was a student, I was also working on campus as a junior webmaster. I started with the Official Languages and Bilingualism Institute as a work-study student, and then I transferred into social sciences, and I worked with Francis Ann for also a couple of terms, and I did a small contract with the Faculty of Engineering. During my work at the Faculty of Social Sciences, one of the key things that I've been done there is I trained over 70 content editors to use Drupal on their daily basis. We're going to talk more about what is a content editor and define it more. Also on the side, I volunteer as a webmaster for Special Olympics Ottawa. And now we're just going to define a little bit the web at the University of Ottawa so you know where we come from and what's our environment. We're using a customized Drupal 7 distribution. It is a unified platform across campus, so all the different faculties are either using Drupal or migrating towards Drupal. It is a responsive and mobile-friendly. It is also accessible, and it has a dual language editor on one page because we are a bilingual university. We have to have all the information in English and French. So we customize a dual language so we can edit both languages at the same time in one single page.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about web operations at the university. As you can see, we have quite a diverse population, a lot of different characters to work with, and that's pretty much why we did this presentation, because doing a Drupal migration or any kind of migration when you're working with a website, you're often dealing with a variety of people. It's not just a tool that you're migrating to, you're also helping people adopt and adapt to the tool. So that's kind of more the reason why we started this presentation, came up with it. So at the university, we're really lucky. We have a wonderful web IT team at the Central. And what they do is they pretty much take care of the technical side of things. So they're the ones setting up the servers, giving us a template that's responsive, accessible. They're basically taking care of the maintenance and the updates, and when we ask for new features, they're the ones who develop it, test it, and make sure it works. So they're constantly evolving our distribution. They're updating it about once a month, so enhancements are happening all the time. And as a result, as web developers and web content strategists, our roles have sort of changed over time and evolved as the university has provided this tool, and we've all sort of come on board. Our role now is more to deliver the architecture, to work as strategists with our clients, develop page layouts, figure out the best structure to meet the needs of our clients and of our audiences, and then also to ensure that the content is added properly and accessible, that sort of thing. So it's changing, it's evolving who we are as web folks on campus. And obviously not one size fits all. So we've been given a lot of flexibility for that reason. Our web governance varies depending on where you are, what sector you are within the university. So some of us are decentralized, some of us are centralized. Some of us have very small sites, and so we're centralized and we do everything ourselves. So we add the images, we do the content, we do everything. However, Patrick and I are in a different environment. We're in faculties that are really large. And so as a result, we have a lot more websites to manage, and we don't have the time to do all that uploading of content. So we've decentralized it and distributed that responsibility to content editors, who we'll talk about a bit more. I'll get into my faculty. We have about 53 sites. We've always had about 50 or so sites. What happens is professors do research, and then they leave, and so we have to close their sites. So there's a bit of a fluctuation there. And then right now we currently have about 6 sites in development. I have about 110 content editors. They're not like full on all the time. They come and go, and there's a lot of rollover as well, or changeover I should say. And I talked about the migration date, so we've done 2 migrations. The current distribution that we're on is the uOttawa distribution, and that was intended. We had a really nice working distribution before this that we liked, and we had some pros and cons. But the benefit of being on the uOttawa distribution is that we had less work to do internally, so it freed us up to do a better delivery for our clients internally. All right.
And at the Faculty of Medicine, we have around 57 sites, not including the subsites. So including the subsites is going to go way up higher. We also have around 105 content editors. Not all of them are active at the same time. There's more active editors, and you can see that some sites might have 7 to 8 different content editors depending on what task they take on that website. We started the migration in 2014, not by me. I've been here for 6 months, so I'm taking the last couple websites, 4 websites that still need to be migrated. Just a preface, it's been a long time migrating because the Faculty of Medicine had some customization that needs to be made different from all the different faculties, so that's why the migration has been taking so much long.
But you're at the tail end. It's all good.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk to you a bit about the stakeholders. So again, a lot of variety here.
So we're going to define the different stakeholders that we have here. We have site owners, web champions, and content editors. We're going to start with the site owners. Who are the site owners, and what are the challenges and solutions that go with them? Usually, a site owner is the person responsible for the website. It is not always involved in the entire process of the migration. Usually, it's involved at the beginning and at the end to approve most of the processes. Usually, it's a director or a manager, so it's an upper management person. In our cases, it might be also a dean, a chair, or a vice dean. There's a lot of challenges that comes with a site owner. First of all, they are busy, so they're not always available to come to us and sit for a 2-hour meeting discussing what they want from the website and how they want to migrate it, what they want to change, or what they want to update. They also have different priorities. Usually, a management person might not have his website at full priority. They might be happy with what the website looks like, and they might not see that migrating to Drupal or any other website might be a priority for them. We might lack some endorsement from them, so if we go with the migration and that upper management person does not tell its staff that this is a priority, we need to pull with that, it might cause some delays by getting the content from those people or having them more interactive with us. And communication. So because it's a different lingo and the Drupal lingo might be different from what an admin person versus a tech person perspective, they might be describing what they want with their website. For example, they might want a BMW, a nice BMW, but we end up doing a Model T Ford for them because we cannot understand what they want and we cannot analyze it.
I think it's the other way around.
Well, yeah.
We give them something really good in the
Yeah.
end, but sometimes we're talking about a Model T Ford.
So different solutions as a clear communication. One idea is to have an elevator pitch ready when you meet with them. So you tell them in a couple of minutes why we're doing this, give them some solid points, some arguments why we want to do the migration, what's going to benefit them. it's good to tell them, but also to give them that pitch elevator so they can use it and use those points that you said to convince their staff or convince other management or their higher up leaders as well. Another solution is to appoint a lead. So you have this initial talk with that upper management person, but also have a contact between you and him or that person. So there's always who can have a more priority for the web. In that case, he can be the lead between you and the site owner. Have the web project's endorsements. So have a clear message to that person. Tell them that you need their endorsement whenever they're going to be working on that migration, to tell their staff to take, for example, a couple hours of their week to work on the new content, or to always prioritize some of the web projects that we want them from. For example, creating a sitemap or provide us with some images for the website. And last thing, make sure that you sign off on key documents. So before you start working on the website and building it, make sure you sign off on make them sign off on a sitemap so they can agree on the structure for your website. And at the end, make sure that they are happy with the website before you launch it.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk to you a bit about web champions. So when we were migrating in 2012, we got the dean's endorsement, which was wonderful, and we set up an initial kickoff meeting, and he had selected key leaders in all sectors at the faculty. So we have 9 academic units, which are schools and departments and an institute. And so what we needed from the dean was him to pre-select the key people that he wanted to be sort of the lead. And they would be that go-between person between us and their sector to understand their needs when it comes to the web. Our dean selected professors. We wanted somebody sort of higher up in staff in terms of authority, I guess. So for us, that was important. We gave them the title Web Champion. We wanted them to feel important. We wanted to emphasize what their role was, and it was to champion the importance of the web within their sector. They were our main point of contact, like I explained, and they are the experts of their content. They were considered the people who would have a really good sense of what was important to their sector to have represented on the web. So the challenges we faced with these web champions, in some cases it was defining their role. So we had to make it very clear. All right, I'll just try to stick to the challenges. So some of them thought their role was very important, and they had a lot more power than they actually did. Some of them didn't take on that engagement and were sort of thrown this responsibility, so they were kind of more laid back and not very engaged. So we had this sort of struggle sometimes about defining what it is they really need to do. Engagement, I just spoke of that. So we had one in particular who was present, but he wasn't present. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. And then we had, they're not technical people. They're not people who, especially at the Faculty of Social Sciences, they're not web people necessarily. They're professors. They're used to teaching. They're used to correcting, a whole lot of correcting. And so that came back, but they were experts in other areas, and so we wanted their involvement from that perspective. The other challenges we had was with delegation. So sometimes they would, because they're busy people, they would take what we gave them to do and they would hand it off to a student to do, rather than take it on themselves, which gave us problems as well. So, for example, we asked them to do a content inventory so that they could get familiar with their website content, and some of them handed it off to a student. So we had an idea behind that, what we wanted to achieve, and they were like, no, I'm too busy, this is not that important. So we learned quickly that we had to set the expectation and communicate clearly to them what it was we were trying to do with them. And so it was to be more transparent, to say, well, we wanted you to do the content inventory because we want you to know what you've got already and how we need you to start thinking about how we're going to change it into this new system. All right, so we had to sometimes seek the site owner's support to get some of that fire under some of their butts. So that was important too, to sort of make sure that you've still got that dean in your back pocket or upper management to kind of set that tone. We had regular group meetings. So because we had 9 academic units, meeting one-on-one with them throughout the course of the project would have been a lot of time for all of us. So what we did is, instead, is we gathered 3 or 4 of them at a time and met with them. And what that did, it created a bit of peer pressure, so they got more engaged too, which was good. And we got to see if some of our ideas stuck across multiple clients at once, okay? Because we were trying to create a sort of more customized, but also more standardized website. All right.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Would you have like a regular calendar of meetings, or more like each delivery you kind of do it?
Yeah. So we had a sense of where we had a sort of a timeline of what we were doing with the project and where we wanted to be. We were migrating in 2012 at the same time. Sorry, Patrick, it's taking longer than expected. But we were migrating at the same time as we were doing a physical move. So we were changing physical buildings as well. So that was the idea, is we wanted to launch the website at the same time as we moved into the new building. So we had a timeline of where we wanted to go and what steps we needed. And so what we did is we met with them as we needed to. But we, and as we accomplished things. We didn't have preset calendar, you have to be here at this date. And, we were a little bit more flexible, and we had to be, because things evolved and changed as we went. And not the vision that we necessarily had wasn't always the vision that happened. As everybody knows with project management, things don't always go as planned. All right, so we had to use a lot of visual examples as well. So we created forms, we created charts. We try to break it down to them visually, what we were talking about, because Drupal has its own lingo too. You have to kind of break that down and make it more everyday language so people can get it, because you're dealing with people who don't have that Drupal background that you do, or the accessibility, or the SEO, or the web background in general. So you have to learn to speak their language and make it easier to understand. So we did that, and we explained the exercises, the purposes beforehand, and we had to adjust our own expectations as a team. So we may have sat down together and come up with a strategy just before our meeting, and what that did is, when we met as a team beforehand, is that we sort of set an understanding between us and agreed on approach, and then we went into the meeting, and so that became more unified that way. There was 3 of us on that team, just so you know. I had our manager, and then myself and our programmer analyst as well, Murad. So at times we had to understand that our profs are very busy, and and that as a result we had to adjust our expectations as to what we could do for them. Okay, content editors, right. So these were our lovely artists at work. We have quite a few, as I explained, and they're mostly staff members, and that's intentional. We kind of want to have a bit of, I guess it's like we want to know that we can trust them. If you have a professor, you can trust them. But they also have their own intentions and their own reputations to portray, and so sometimes they want to take that in a certain direction. So we had to kind of choose content editors who were a little bit more neutral. So we made sure that all of them had training before they touched Drupal. They were often admin staff. The times where they were students was when it came to a lower level site, like a research site for a professor. So in psychology, we have psychology labs where they want to promote their research. In that case, it's a professor who's the site owner, and so they hire a student to do the work for them. All right, so those people, there's a lot of turnover and that sort of thing. So getting into challenges. We also had professors who are sometimes the site owners who also wanted to be the direct editor to their site. Challenges. They're not always, again, coming from a technical background, so we had to make sure we gave them really clear, effective Drupal training. Some of them had a fear of technology. So I'm in social sciences. I'm not in engineering. I'm not in those fields or science. So there's more of a fear around technology, I find. These are people also who are wearing multiple hats and are doing multiple things. So sometimes they're frontline workers who work at a desk. So they're doing Drupal updates at the same time as greeting clients. And so you have to understand their environment and what's possible. So what we ran into is that they found the work time consuming, and they were forgetting their Drupal training. They had a lack of web writing skills maybe, or maybe they were working with people who had no web skills, who were giving them the content, and who were higher up on the food chain saying, you got to put this on the web, and they're like, I don't know, I don't really like the look of this, but they were doing it anyways because they're told to. And they all had very limited knowledge of accessibility and SEO, so that had to be taken into consideration as well. So we are also working with a customized Drupal distribution. It's not the same as the Drupal, generic Drupal that you get out there. The university has taken it and put in a dual language editor. They've done a whole bunch of other things to it to which made it a little bit more challenging. We couldn't just give people a YouTube video that's out there done by somebody else on basic Drupal or regular Drupal and expect them to learn. We had to train them ourselves in a more customized way. There's a lot of staff turnover, especially with students, and engagement was sometimes very low. Again, people were just handed this as a task to do on the side of their desk. So solutions were a lot of training, a lot of education. Patrick will discuss this a little bit more. Support of all kinds, so being available by phone, by email, whatever way works, letting them come to your desk, going to see them if necessary, especially if they're a frontline worker. They can't leave their desk, possibly. So also getting very clear about web governance. This is something I'm still struggling with. So defining who is responsible for the content, each piece of content on the site, and how frequently should that content be reviewed, all right? And one of the tools that I'm working on right now is to use the content inventory, and you use add two nice little columns, and you say, okay, identify who's responsible for this page, this page, this page, and how frequently do you expect to be able to update it and review it. How-to sheet. So this was the go-to and the one that we still rely on quite a bit. It's like a one-pager. Patrick will describe it a little bit more. Basically, you send that out as quickly as you can when they run into a stumbling block in terms of being able to do an update. My wish, it's on here as a solution, but it hasn't quite happened yet, is to train the writers, whoever's providing the content to the site, get them trained so that they understand that there's a difference between print and a difference between web, okay? And then to also give them that sense of the responsibility around SEO and accessibility. Again, education, so accessibility is huge, and giving clear examples of how it impacts people. It really made a difference.
So part of the solution is to have training, and that's what I did for the Faculty of Social Sciences, and I'm also doing it for medicine. The trainings that I mentioned before are one-on-one trainings, and basically the one-on-one training is between 60 and 90 minutes. It's an oral presentation and a live demo, so I would sit down at their desk and then show them how to do the task right in front of them so they can actually see how it's done instead of just telling them and by just abstract. The problem with one-on-one training is because we are giving them all the information in this one session, they might forget information, especially if they're not taking notes. Some of them take notes, written notes, and exactly how to do this task on what to click and what to click next, but some of them don't. And because they're not using Drupal every single day, they might use it after 2 or 3 weeks and forget how to do a simple task like adding an image to your to the editor. It's also resource intensive. Multiply 70 content editors by 90 minutes. It's a lot of time taken from actually optimizing the web or working on the web just so we can train those people. It can be a lot of time taking away from your team resources. And also there's some trainer errors. So because we're also human, when we train, we might forget to tell them how to do a specific thing. For example, we might forget about how to make your link accessible, for example, and they might they do it wrong, and we have to go back and educate them again. However, the one-on-one training, the pros about it is it's customized to their site functionality. So because we have different sites, some sites might have a news article. We train them on how to update and maintain the news article. But if someone else doesn't have that functionality on their website, we don't mention how to create and update a news article. It's also convenient for them because we meet with them and usually in their offices on their own availability. So they tell us when they're available.
And on their computer, which is really helpful.
It is really helpful because some of the people, especially at the Faculty of Medicine, might have a Mac, and it might be different from a Mac to to a computer, and it might be different between browsers because some of the functionalities might not work on Internet Explorer. And last thing is there's an immediate feedback after that. They would tell us what they find hard or what they struggle with, so we can explain more and adapt that to our next training so we can improve the quality of the training that we're giving for other people. Yes?
So you mentioned a lot about like improving the training.
Yes.
Do you use any of the sessions to pull in UX information so you can improve the software? Because I mean, often, you know, I think in a lot of software, we can blame the user, but improving the experience and making it intuitive can both that.
Sure.
So what we do is they might give us feedback on something they might find really hard, or it's something that doesn't work for what they want. We take that feedback, but because we're not the actual coders or we're not working on the actual distribution, we give that feedback to the central team, and then we tell them that this has come up. We'd be able to fix that. Would that work for everyone else? Because it's the same distribution for all the different faculties, so we want to make sure that the change that we're making is also everyone else wants that. So we need to work on that. It might be different from one company and one website from a university perspective.
But that's a good point. Like, and that is something that's part of our evolution of roles. Is now we're more the go-between the client's needs and the user experience, and translating that to the central web team to say, hey, I'm running into this reoccurring issue. Can you do something about it? Can you improve in the next distribution when you do an update? Can you try to fix this and make it better, make it smoother? There's some things they can do, some things they haven't been able to do, but it's been working pretty well, actually.
So
it's been a nice
central
relationship.
Web team manages the hosting
Yes.
and maintains the distro.
Yes.
Okay.
So they take care of all the modules, upgrades, new feature requests. They're the ones who determine what requests actually get through, I think in conjunction with the comms and development team. So
you're their client, and then
Yes.
you have
In a
your
way,
own client.
yes. We're the middleman.
yeah, it's a
between them.
little bit of
Okay.
phone line. Yeah.
Not broken telephone. I hope.
No.
We work really hard at making sure that that's not the case. But they have a good ticket system as well that we can go in and add stuff to, and they use Jira as well to sort of see the volume and the needs. And some of us faculties, and it's not just faculties that are on the distribution, there's services as well. But as faculties, we get together every so often and we talk about where our difficulties are, and sometimes we gang up on them a little bit by saying, hey, we all need this. Fix it, please. It's a priority.
Okay. So other than a one-on training that we provide, we have also something called a group training. This is done by the central web team and not in the faculties. The issues with that, it's less convenient for the content editor because the central web team specify where the location and time for those group trainings. So it might be harder for a person to leave their desk and then go there, especially if they're on the front desk, or they are at the Faculty of Medicine and we are not on this campus, we are next to the General Hospital. So it might be harder for people to come over here. It is not customized, so everyone in that room will take the same training, even if they have that functionality on their website or not. The example again of a news story, they might tell them how to update and create a news story, but they might not use it on their website because they can't see it, so it might be more confusing for them. However, the group training have less responsibility and resources on our web teams because we're no longer managing that training. We're not always trying to see the availabilities between us and the client and try to train them. We just send them right away to the website for the web team and they coordinate together. It is also consistent training because they are the one who always update the distribution. They will ensure 100% that what they're saying is correct and make sure that everything is up to date at the same time. So other than the trainings, we have different tools, and the first tool is a user manual. User manual is usually a document that covers all aspects of the Drupal content editing. Because we can't use online resources like YouTube to show them like some tutorials, we have to do something in-house, and that's a solution. There's also an online version on the website at the central called the uOttawa website at the faculty, and it's also not just for editors, but also for editors and web admins and other people as well. The problem with the user manual, it gets outdated really fast. An example is we went from different editors, from an older one to the CK editor, and different functionalities changed. For example, how to add images changed completely. There's new functionality. So that user manual that we had, most of it is just
we had to scrap
garbage in a way, because it doesn't apply anymore to the current website. It can also be overwhelming. Seeing a 30-page document with a lot of pictures and a lot of text can be overwhelming for some users if they just want to know how to go in to edit a simple link. But the user manual, it's printable and searchable. So we make sure that it's searchable. There's a table at the first, so they can check everything that they want. And there's a lot of screenshots. So we tell them exactly what button they need to click instead of trying to search for that button on the CK editor. And it's all encompassing. So everything that they need is there. If they need to just edit a text or create a new page, everything is there. Other type of tool that we can have is a how-to sheet. So that's something that's adopted more at the Faculty of Social Sciences.
Really
started doing that. It's a condensed visual guide. So it's a condensed way of the user manual, and it's specific to one task. So for example, if your client or your content editor comes and tells you, I don't know how to update a link, instead of trying on the phone, trying to guide them through, you can send them a quick 2 or 3 pages Word document with a lot of screenshots, tell them those are the steps to update a link, and that's it. You don't add more information to it. That's a small problem with that. It does not cover all variation of the tasks. So if you're adding a link, you don't tell them how to add a link for an email, for example. So if they want to add an email as a link, they might request another how-to sheet for that. And it's hard to find the correct one whenever you have multiple how-to sheets. If you keep requesting that from us, you might end up with, I don't know, let's say 15. So you might, at the end of the year, have those different how-to sheets that might be confusing to know which one you want to look at. However, it has a lot of screenshots. So you also, just like the user manual, you tell them exactly with some arrows on what button they need to click. It is a step-by-step guidance. It's easy to update because you're only updating a small portion, so 2 pages instead of like a 40-page document. It is a easy reference and created as needed. So we don't have a bank of how-to sheets waiting for a content editor to ask. Whenever the content editor wants something specific, we build that for them. It would take, I would say, 30 minutes probably to add all the screenshots and send it to them, depending on the task. But it can be like from 5 to 30 minutes just to build that. And that way we can also ensure that it's up to date, that we are doing the screenshots right away for them. Other thing that you can do is support. So a lot of phone calls and emails. Encourage them to call you because it might be easier, but also encourage them to send you emails so you can catalog that and archive it for later on. Have office hours. What we might want to do, that's something that we don't do it yet, but it's an idea. Specify 1 or 2 hours in your week. Tell them anyone can drop by. You can come and ask us questions. If you want to look at how to do a certain thing, we can show you right away. Or if you want to talk about the Drupal and how you can implement a certain functionality on your website, come and see us. We can do some brown bag lunch. A lot of people might have a front desk job. They can't leave whenever they want to come and see us in the office hours. We can do during the lunch break. Just go have lunch together or a coffee break and then talk about what you want to do. We also mentioned here that to be the middle person between the client and the central web team. So whatever those clients want, and if there's a lot of need for it, we can translate what they need and then give it to central team through the ticketing system. So we can be that middle person to try to translate what they want to what we can tell the web team more specific and more technical talk. We can do some video tutorials as well. It's like a screen capture. We do not recommend that a lot because if that functionality comes outdated, it's super hard to update a video and you might end up redo the entire video and that can be time consuming. And you have free online resources like lynda.com. At the faculty, we can have, all the staff have free access to it, and everyone who has a public library card can access to lynda.com. There's a lot of free resources like how to write for the web, accessibility, and all of different stuff. You have to go fast on that.
Okay. So lessons learned. I'm going to try to be a little bit quick because we're coming to the end, but communications are key. Try to communicate as best you can. Expectations. Let them know as much information as you can as you go. Have clear web governance. We rarely recommend that. Provide support all kinds. And communications, again, I'll just come back to that auto analogy. If you say we're building a website, let's say instead you say we're building a car, and in your head you've got a Tesla in mind, but I've got like a real red Honda Civic. We're not on the same page. So you want to bring, as much as possible, everybody on the same page and get them to define it for you. So again, just understanding and defining the Drupal lingo. Make sure you understand what Drupal is. There's quite a learning curve if you're just adopting it for the first time, so take your time, understand it, and get ready to be able to explain it in layman's terms. Provide as many visual examples and analogies as possible as you're going along. Define your content needs. So one of the things we did with our Drupal users is they were sort of the middle person between putting up the content and receiving the content from all kinds of sources. So one of the things we did is we prepared them some forms, and we said, okay, when somebody says they want you to post a publication, here's a form. Give it to them and tell them to fill it out, and it'll tell them exactly what they need to put in it, okay, and how long it has to be, what size the image has to be, so that it's less work for them to have to explain all that. They just hand that off and away they go, kind of thing. And it kind of puts the ownership then back on the writer to actually understand and provide exactly what's needed. Simplify the structure. So when you build Drupal, keep it as simple as possible, as flexible as possible. It's really important. Be open and flexible yourself with your client. Take the time to listen to their needs. Not one size doesn't fit all. And you need to have those wild cards, those areas of flexibility within your templates or your layouts to allow them to have that little thing that they're insisting on having, whether it be like a photo or, I don't know, that thing that you really don't agree with, but that will make them really happy. Have them add the content, train them, and as soon as they're trained, get them into Drupal right away, adding their content. It's the best way for them to learn, less responsibility on your shoulders, and they get to practice what they've learned right away. Very important. Get feedback and sign off along the way. It's so important. Sign off is great because then you can say, yep, keep the scope of the project. This is what we agreed on. You come back to it and you just say, okay, if we're changing things, then that's got to change. Build in extra time, buffers, or build in extra resources, hire more staff. Take it slow as you can and build it right from the start. So build it on paper if you need to, before you actually get into the tool and actually start building it. We do lots of sitemaps. We do a lot of drawing. I recommend pulling out Lego Box if you're talking about a panel page and you're wanting to show them how they can fit the content in. And I think that's pretty much it for that. Okay, the other really good tip that I came across is it's migration grief. You're going to run into this with people. And you're going to run into it as yourself, as a team or as a person. You're going to go through these stages of, oh my God, I don't want to migrate. It's not happening. No, we're not going to do it. And then you get into anger. Why us? Why do we have to go first? And then you get into blaming and that sort of thing and bargaining. I just need a little bit more time to deliver the project. And then you get into depression. Oh, I don't want to do anything. You just get bummed out by the whole thing. And then finally you get to the stage of acceptance. Knowing this is helpful because you can identify where your client's at or where the person's at, stakeholders at, and you can help them through it, okay? And it's something I was taught during the second migration, and it's been extremely helpful. All right, that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to uOttawa for our education and for our jobs. It's been fantastic, and thank you to the Drupal camp organizers for making this happen. It's great.
Yes.
You spoke to people who are brief about migrating. Were there any people who were super duper excited?
They're very few, because it's change, right? Everybody resists change. So it's something that you are going to face when you're doing a migration.
Yeah. Also, they don't
know where,
resistance. Sorry. Also, they don't know where they're going to, so they might have more fear about that. It's like, we're happy with the website that we have. Why do you want to go on Drupal? So you might want to show them other websites that are already built on that, and why do you want to do it for them? Yes?
So it sounds like you're running a lot of sites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you using Ager to manage all of them and do upgrades, stuff like that? Okay.
Well, to talk about the technical side, we'd have to point you in the direction of the technical team.
Okay.
However, what we can say is that we made some mistakes in our Drupal distribution, in the build of it, and that we're trying to correct those for the next migration, the next Drupal distribution that we adopt. And some of those decisions have kind of locked us into silo-based websites rather than sites that are, you can sort of
Like
exchange
running the same
information
code
on.
Yeah.
base, you mean? Right. Yeah. So the reason I ask is because with Ager, the more, if any sites you have on the same platform or code base, I guess, you can upgrade them all at once. If you have 200 sites on the same code base, it's a one button push to upgrade all of them.
Nice,
Kind of thing.
nice.
So that's why, like,
I would love to put you in touch with our central team.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't know how they upgrade the distributions. It's
Right.
on their end, but.
I hear it's a bit of a nightmare, though, and that's why we want to move on.
Right. Other questions? Yes.
In terms of architecture, on the continuum of fully architected up front, you did it all this way
Yes.
versus building the aircraft as it's flown. Where did you sort of land in this, and what recommendation?
Well, when I don't know. Do you want to
Go
go
for
first?
it.
Okay. In 2012, we were changing the look and the feel of the websites. We were taking a different approach. So we had to build everything in dialogue with our client. So a lot of it was done on paper beforehand. And in the second migration, it was very similar, but we'd already done a lot of that work. So actually, we didn't work with Web Champions the second time around. We actually just migrated, and we kind of did it without too much consultation because we knew how much time it took, and we decided that wasn't the way to go. And we'd already done a lot of that initial work the first time around. So a lot of it was done on paper and just agreement and sign off, and the way we went. But it was, for us, it was easier to do it that way than to start building and start showing them what they can do and then have them change their mind. These are professors. They like to correct things, okay? So the more opportunities you give them to correct something, the more changes and reiterations you have to do. That's how it worked best for us. It may not be the best solution for everybody. Sometimes having a product working and showing it to a client is actually more effective. But in our case, we didn't want to start building until we knew what we were building.
Okay.
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Oh,
Other questions? Yes.
sure.
Do you use like a metric or some sort of mapping to know where people are at in their process to kind of be onboarded into the migration? So there you can see if a person is at, I don't know, 70% on board or something like that. Do you use some sort of metric or some sort of...
No, it's a real gut feeling kind of interaction thing. Yeah. It's
We
just
do
you
a
get
lot
a
of meetings
sense.
with them, so we know if they're excited or not. If they're excited, that's good. If they're not, we try to encourage them and show them why it is a good thing. So we try to do that.
Yeah. It's often you can see it in, like, if you assign them to do something and they haven't done it and you've asked for it on repetitive occasions, then you know.
You see that they're not...
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of get a sense.
And you plan to migrate to Drupal 8 or Drupal 9 and then next year?
Please.
Hopefully.
I'd love to.
We don't know.
We're waiting for
we're waiting.
confirmation for budget and whether it will be Drupal too.
Because we're not talking about a site or two. Between just two faculties, it's 100 with all different faculties, all different services.
So many
It's a
more.
lot of migration. So it's not 2 or 3 websites that we're talking about. It's a bigger budget for a university scale. So it needs to come to agreement about it.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of upper management discussions. And it's sometimes hard to get them to understand the importance and value of migrating.
Right.
And how
It's
it'll...
going to come fast because
Yeah.
it's ending in 2020 or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Right.
we're like, come on. They don't quite understand our enthusiasm to move on. They're like, we just did it. We're good. Everything's good. No, it's not good.